I think we're good now. So we'll call this special meeting of the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force to order, and it is Thursday evening, 6:06. So first item on the agenda is roll call. So just as a matter of business, for those of you that are familiar with commission meetings, since this is a special meeting of the task force, we will not be taking public comment on non-agenda items, but we will be taking public comment on action items. And we have two in front of you this evening if anyone had any concerns or questions or members of the public did. So why don't we turn to roll call? I'll read out everyone's name. If you could just respond present would be much appreciated. And I'm going to read this in no particular order except for the list that I have in front of me. So please don't take any exception. Commissioner Fine?
Present.
Thank you. And I am going to ask for pronunciations. Sarah, can you please tell me how to pronounce your last name?
Ejigu, and I go by my nickname, Abby.
Abby. Commissioner Abby Ejigu.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Chima.
Present.
Commissioner Blake. Commissioner Blake, I thought I saw you earlier.
I'm here. Can you hear me now? Present.
Yes, thank you.
Present.
Commissioner Linheim.
Present.
Commissioner Dangerfield. I know you're there.
Present.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yep. Commissioner Ghosh.
Present.
Commissioner Har.
Present.
Commissioner Malvito.
Present, and my first name is pronounced Hector. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Opton. Don't see him. Commissioner Opton looks like absent. Commissioner Harger.
It's pronounced Harger and present.
Thank you, Commissioner Harger. Thank you. Commissioner Polk.
Present.
Commissioner Mizell.
Here.
And Commissioner Walker.
Present.
Great. Thank you all for enduring that. We'll have 3 more members by the end of tonight, and it'll be that much longer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our, Commissioner Opton is here now.
Yeah.
Commissioner Opton, you've made it, yes?
I'm here, yes.
Great, thank you. All right, well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Mohammed. For those of you that are familiar with this process to date, the City Council authorized us to enter into a contract with a team being led by the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform, and that is David Mohammed is leading that effort with a fabulous consulting team. And he is going to be really instrumental in facilitating our task force meetings going forward. So I'm going to turn the floor over to David. David, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, David. I know that might get confusing during this process. Good evening, everybody. Let me just welcome everyone. It is very exciting to get this going. We are here because many of you all advocated, pushed, suggested, did a little bit more than suggesting and pushed the city council, the mayor, to engage in this process of reimagining public safety. And so I want to appreciate all of the commissioners, all of the members of the public who are with us, and all of those who really brought us to this place. I know many of us have been chomping at the bits to get to this work. And so we're excited to help facilitate this process and get to the extraordinarily important work of reimagining public safety in the city of Berkeley. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We have really three primary agenda items today, in addition to a public comment. That's going to be introductions to try to get to know each other a little better. That is to elect a chair, which means we've got to really listen up during introductions so that we get to know each other. Many of you all know each other. Many of us know each other. And then, a somewhat difficult process of selecting 3 at-large members among the 17 applicants. You have had their full applications for a number of days. We emailed you just before this meeting a really basic breakdown of that. If I know many people responded to that email, if you did not get it, that means we have an issue with your email that we need to correct. And so we want to jump in with those, although there are only kind of 4 substantive agenda items: public comment, introductions, election of a chair, and election of the at-large members. All of that could be lengthy, so we want to jump in to the discussion. And so, and what as you all, for the commissioners, the members of the public, didn't see that I was running from one thing to another, which has been life these days. And so, David, if you don't mind reminding me, are we going to go first to public comment or into the introductions of the commissioners?
We're going to save public comment for the action items on the agenda, so we're going to go straight to introductions.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So here is what we want to do is we have a number of things we want to accomplish with introductions. Primarily, we want to have folks know each other. But we also want the introductions to help us think about, are there some gaps that we're missing as we think about electing the 3 at-large members? And so when you introduce yourself, think about what you might want in an at-large member and think about those points that you want to raise in introducing yourself. What we are specifically asking you to do is give your name, if you have an organization affiliation. Third is what has inspired or driven you to want to be on this commission, this task force. And then 4th, what do you hope to get out of the task force? So that was your name, any organization affiliation, what brings you to the task force, and what do you hope to get out of the task force? So those are the 4 questions that we are asking of you. If you want to add additional information, especially, again, given the fact that we're trying to understand what gaps we might have as we think about selecting the 3 at-large members, please do. And I am going to, just based upon where the squares are, start off, and then I'm going to ask that when you're finished introducing yourself, if you don't mind passing it on to the next person. And so I want to go to Mr. Blake, and then we can, and you're going to give us a perfect example on, and let me just, one more thing, we're going to start with the task force members. And so any members of the team, we're going to go at the end when we give our somewhat longer introduction. Mr. Blake.
Okay. My name is Paul Kaloha Blake. I'm engaged in numerous organizations, Consider the Homeless. I am the president of the East Bay Media Center. I've been a volunteer in this community and lived in this community for close to 40 years now. I currently am in the streets a lot in terms of what I could bring to this, to reimagining. I am in the very scene that I'm hoping to reshape, which is on the streets, working not only with the unsheltered, but also with businesses and notable personages in the community. And what would I like to get out of this? I would like to see.
Uh-oh, Mr. Blake, you went, something happened with your audio. There you go. Oh, you're gone again. It's something, I think I saw your elbow hit something and it switched your, no. Okay, maybe while you work on that, because we still cannot hear you. Maybe we'll go to.
I'm texting him.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Mizell. Uh-oh, yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. My name is Nathan Mizell. I am a third-year UC Berkeley student. I am a commissioner on the Police Review Commission, and I am the PRC's representative on this task force. I have served as vice chair of the commission and as chaired the subcommittee on controlled equipment on the PRC. I am the director of policy, the ASUC president, and I've served in a lot of various other student leadership capacities. But I'm hoping, I guess why I'm here, first of all, is, there is such a critical need to find new solutions to public safety that expand beyond the very limited scope we have seen really in the past 200 years. The same approach to fixing really what are root cause problems, systemic problems, can no longer be the answer, and we truly need something new. And what I hope to get out of the experience and time on this task force is really a new system and how we manage public safety. And that's going to start with the specialized care unit. That's going to start with BERCDOT. And I'm sure many more things we'll have time to discuss as we go forth. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, thank you. And can you pass it?
I'll pass it to.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. It sounds like Mr. Blake's audio is back. So that was.
Hello.
Yes, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah?
sir.
I'll try and make it quick, and I apologize. I don't know what happened. So I'm hoping to literally reimagine the system that we have here in Berkeley. And what I hope to bring to it is an education and a change within our entire community. I don't personally believe that it's simply a matter of changing a system. It's more in terms of educating and changing our community as a whole so that we care, so that we're interested in service. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Mr. Blake, can you pass it to another task force member? Uh-oh, that's right. I'll go to Ms. Fine. You're on mute.
Hi, I'm Margaret Fine, and I'm very grateful to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say I'm really grateful to Council Member Rashi Kesawani for being appointed. And I grew up in Berkeley during the 1970s, and I went to Berkeley Public Schools and graduated from Berkeley High in 1981. And it really profoundly inspired my adult choices. The civil rights movement has led me to a path of representing marginalized communities, many of them that have been over-policed and disproportionately impacted by the criminal legal system and incarceration and deportation systems. I came back in 2016. My mom still lives here, and I live in the house where I grew up. Since 2017, I've been on the Mental Health Commission, where I have met the exceptional Bunachima and Paul Blake and many others. I have focused on severe mental illness, substance use, and homelessness. and on that commission. I've also been representing immigrants from Mexico, Central and South America in asylum cases. And prior to that time, I was a child welfare attorney in Philadelphia's law department. And in the 90s, I was at a community-based organization that served people with AIDS in inner city Baltimore. So I have a great deal of commitment to having very diverse individuals and groups being represented. And I'm really pleased to see a task force that has so many different people. I also care deeply that we have meaningful participation during the community engagement process, where we go out and make sure that these communities are included and make sure they have the tech and that they receive honorarium in order to participate, because their lived experience is so valuable to us. I'm also have advocated for more than 30 years in the LGBT community, mainly through local, state, and national LGBT law associations. And some of my work that what I hope the task force looks at is we have over policing, but it's actually can be very messy, particularly with crisis response. And I'm on the SCU steering committee as well. You know, when someone makes a 911 call, we're not necessarily always sure who the first responders will be that will show up. And so what is on my mind is who is getting what resources based on race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability, seniors, and does some lean more towards over policing or others getting services. So I'm hoping that the community engagement also draws that out so we have a better idea of where those resources are needed. And I will call on Buna.
Thank you.
I'm Buna Chima. I'm 75 years old. I'm an immigrant from India and have came to this country at the age of 25 and have lived here for 50 years. And I believe given the best of myself to this city. I'm most excited about us being able to set aside some of our biases and prejudices and ideas that we have about community services, our police department, and sort of start from an open space to be able to hear deeply, to talk with each other, to listen for where we're different, where we are same, and have a process that we can be really proud of and work as closely as we possibly can as a task force. I will work very hard. Most of the folks here know that about me. I also have the ability to be able to keep groups, diverse groups together. And have a lot of experience in administration, looking at budgets, was the executive director of a $10 million nonprofit for a long time. So, you know, I have some skills, everyone else brings their skills to the table, and together I think we're going to make the best recommendations from this process that I would love to compare with the other cities and say, we did it better. And in terms of the gap, I think one or two more people that have had the lived experience of interactions with police officers, and also someone that can bring more of the women's issues into this. It feels like, you know, when we think of police, we think of police actions, men, but a lot of women also are part of receiving the services of our division. So that's it. Welcome everyone. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Una.
Okay, I will pop it to Hector.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey everyone, Hector Malvido. I'm the co-chair of Latinos Unidos de Berkeley. I'm vice chair of the Berkeley Community Safety Coalition. But most importantly, I think I'm an immigrant from Mexico, and I just recently moved to Berkeley, but have been active in the Bay Area for many years, particularly working with people experiencing homelessness and on policy and community engagement work. I would say what I'm looking forward, and sorry if my background is showing that it's that I'm moving, because I am. I'm currently in a car. What I'm looking for this process is I don't want it to just be another box that is checked, and it to just be, something, hey, we had a Reimagine Public Safety Task Force and it's all said and done. See, we're great. We're progressive. I really want us to get put to work and come up with some real ideas. And I'm hoping that whatever these ideas look like, they are community centered, and they are working to ensure that folks are not just told about these ideas once they're being curated or acted on, but they have a seat at the table throughout the process. I, for one, can speak that language justice is a huge piece of why I'm here. I want this to be available in Spanish so that our Latino immigrant community and monolingual Spanish speaking community can be here and be able to digest and give input when they can. So that's what I would say is a gap that, I think I'm hoping we can address in the future. But a big hope for me is that this work is given the runway that policing has been given for so long and not worked at what they promise and what they say they do. And whatever solutions that we have come up here today or in the length of this task force, we're able to make mistakes and we're able to be kind to each other. But at the end, we're able to make some real changes. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Jamal Anderson.
Jamal is actually on our team. Yes, sorry, I should have pointed that out.
No problem. I'll pass it to Alicia. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I'm sorry.
It's Alicia Harger.
Alicia.
Yes, so my name is Alicia Harger. I'm in my second year at UC Berkeley, where I am the co-director of the campus organizing department. I'm also a lifelong Berkeley resident, so King alumni, Berkeley High alumni, let's go. I am incredibly passionate about policing. I have been passionate about policing policies in Berkeley since I was in high school, when I was co-president of the Black Student Union, and we tried to stop them from putting another cop on our campus. We were unsuccessful, but I learned a lot about what it means to make institutional change and the roadblocks that you face. I think that I bring with me a deep lived and intellectual understanding of intersectionality and how that affects policy and how that affects policing. As a Black, queer, mixed race, disabled Jewish woman, I have a lot of embodied experiences in terms of intersectionality. And as somebody who's lived in Berkeley my whole life, I also understand the Berkeley Police Department and how their treatment of racialized individuals is starkly different from white citizens. My father also has lived in the Bay Area his whole life and lived in Berkeley for a very long time. We've both had very negative experiences with BPD. So it's in my lineage to know that this department is capable of a lot of brutality. I am really excited for this process because, as has been said, it's very unprecedented. And my hope is that we do not take on this process of reform for reform's sake. And this has kind of already been said, but we see a lot of reforms taken that seem to just be checking a box. And I hope that we can really take the term reimagine to heart, because when we reimagine something, that means we are taking it apart to its fundamental blocks, and we even throw some of those blocks away. I hope that we can come out of this with an absolutely new vision of what it means to be safe in this city. And I want that to be a vision that doesn't treat police brutality and brutality against Black people as an incidental, because I think that right now it's really treated as an incidental. And we see police brutality go by and it barely makes headlines. And I want to see that change. And I will pass it to, who's left? Abby, have you gone?
Hi, thank you. I am Sarah Abigail Ejigu. known affectionately by my nickname, Abby. This is my mini, one of my 3 children, the youngest one of my 3 children. And she tends to join all of my Zooms. So you might get familiar with her too. And my 3 children are all students in Berkeley Unified Schools. I am a founding and leading member of the recently established community action group in West Berkeley. We call ourselves Peace in the Streets. And we're born out of an upswing in gun violence. So as you can imagine, as a mother, I want these streets to be safe for my children. I want opportunity for our kids. I don't want them to be fearful of, and as a parent, I don't want to be fearful of, of my kids stomping around in our neighborhood.
I'm not fearful of it.
Good.
I know how to protect myself because my dad.
Good. What brings me here is, as appointed by Council Member Terry Taplin, to represent District 2. And what I hope we can work together here to do is to create lasting solutions that will fund youth programs so that our youth have opportunities, hopefully partnering youth with mentors from local entrepreneurs, business owners, to invest in our community. What I really other things that I really hope is for trauma and grief support for the members of our community who have endured violence and loss, and just an equitable, community-centered solution to just bring lasting, and I emphasize that, lasting change, not something that we just try out for a year or 2 and see if it, and then abandon such programs, but something that will be sustaining for the generations to come that are growing up here in Berkeley. And with that said, I can, wait, who's already on the team? And who do I, okay. Oh, I will pass it on to Commissioner Ghosh. Yes.
Thank you so much, Abby. I was trying to raise my hand because Bernardi Ghosh, she, her pronouns. I'm the chair of the Transportation Commission and I have to run to that meeting at 7. So I wanted to make sure that I got a chance to introduce myself, and I'm definitely going to stay. I hope to hear everybody's introduction. So my background is a landscape architect and designer, and I'm coming at this from a perspective of trying to end both traffic violence and police violence on our streets. I was one of the folks who was involved with BERCDOT, which is the Berkeley Department of Transportation, with this idea of depolicing transportation, traffic enforcement. I'm also a member of Walk Bike Berkeley. So that's why I'm here. But, you know, as somebody who's an immigrant, as somebody who was South Asian in this country post 9/11, I also have a personal experience and a deep understanding of what it means to be surveilled, to be a community that's being watched. So it's not necessarily direct interaction with police on our streets, but definitely an understanding of the structures of policing and surveillance. And also definitely an understanding of things like hate incidents affecting our community, like we're seeing with the Asian American community, but how we shouldn't be using that to ask for more police. So how do we protect our communities, but also how do we do it not through increasing policing? So I'm definitely interested in all of the other topics that are going to be discussed here, though my expertise is going to be primarily in talking about design solutions and data-driven solutions and ways that we can shift money to making our public realm safe. And I'm very interested in that because so much of the interactions of folks with police happens in our public realm. And whether it's through mental illness or whether it's, people being targeted for just stepping off the curb a second earlier. So I want to bring that kind of holistic experience to this. In terms of, I'm really excited to be learning from people. Buna Didi is here. I'm very excited to be learning from her and from other folks. I want to shout out to Hector for, making sure that this is not just something we tick off, that we go as deep as possible and be as transformational as possible. With that, I will stop, and I'm sorry. I apologize again for having to leave early, and I hope that going forward we'll be able to have these meetings where we can all be there. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and let me just say, we are due to have a discussion about that, but that is probably going to be when you're gone. So we'll try to take that in consideration and possibly make some decisions via email. But we'll make sure we update you on that. Thank you. Who is left, Mr. Walker?
I'm Todd Walker. I moved to Berkeley in 1967 with my mom, my dad, and my 5 brothers. And I know a very lot of history on Berkeley. I'm willing and glad to share it with everyone on here that doesn't know too much about Berkeley. I'm a mentor. I'm part of Voices Against Violence. I'm a member of the McGee Baptist Church under the pastorship of Reverend Michael Smith. I know so much about Berkeley. I've seen Berkeley change so many different ways. Berkeley used to be a great city to live in. For one thing, when I grew up, it was all about the youth and the elders, taking care of them. Now that's out the door. And this reimagining right here, what we're doing right now, I've been waiting years. It's like a dream come true to me, to be able to be heard and bring in people who grew up with me, older than me, that need to be heard, to tell the story, the history on Berkeley. I mean, from 67 to now, this is a whole different place. So it's like being in a different country right now, being in Berkeley. Berkeley was a great city. And politics just took over. They shut down. They're closing the playgrounds down. Kids have to have money to go to the gym. I'm a youth football coach from Berkeley. We don't even have nowhere to practice, and we don't have nowhere to play in Berkeley. We play in Oakland. That's the home field is in Oakland, at Oakland Tech. To go to play at Berkeley High, it costs so much. It costs so much to rent the football field. These kids are from Berkeley. They're going to go to Berkeley High. And I don't understand. The program we have is Berkeley Junior Jackets. So we're trying to be a feeder program for the football team. Even with the girls as cheerleaders or whatever the kids want to participate in, the different gyms and stuff. They're not open for these kids right now before the pandemic. So I'm here and I'm glad, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing. I want to thank all of y'all for inviting me in on this and voting me in, but I'm ready to work. So anybody have any questions, my phone stay on 24 hours. If you have anything, if you're not from Berkeley, you want to know anything, I will educate anybody on any obstacle that's about Berkeley. For the police station, I went to school with the chief, and we'll get to that on a later date whenever y'all ready. I can let you know a little bit about that too. So whatever it is, I'm on. Let's do this. Like they said, let's not make this a 1 or 2 year program. Let's make this a program that we can pass on down to the younger youth. So thank you. Thank y'all, and I'm glad to be working with you.
The resident historian. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Absolutely. And Dan's making me think this is an Oakland meeting, but it's not. But Mr. Lynn, you're on mute, Dan.
So I'm Dan Lindheim. I'm a Berkeley kid. Went to Emerson, Willard, Berkeley High, long before Mr. Walker. So I might even be able to Mr. Walker. Long back when Berkeley was a Republican town.
Oh man,
most people don't realize. And my kids went to the same school as I went to. And I've been active in Berkeley for, I don't know, my whole life, I guess. For a long time, I was either chair or co-chair of the P&O committee for the school system, which oversaw the parcel tax, which it funds about a 30% of school district, but it really affects policy for the whole thing. I currently am professor at the Goldman School of Public Policy at Cal. I've been doing that, I guess, about 8 years. Before that, I was city manager of the city of Oakland, which is what David's reference is. And in that capacity, I oversaw the Oakland Police Department and oversaw the process to try to substantially reform the Oakland Police Department. And I have a very good and detailed sense of both the opportunities and the limitations of what you can do through reform efforts. And I think I have a pretty detailed sense of how police are organized, what police concerns are. It was quite interesting for somebody who had been a Berkeley student radical to all of a sudden oversee the Oakland Police Department, a little bit of cognitive dissonance there. But one of the other things is when you're running a city and you have 5,000 employees and 1,200 of them are in the Oakland Police Department, you realize they're your employees as well, and you develop a real sense of, regardless of whatever your feelings are about the history of policing or what evil have done at different points, they're your employees. And I developed a real sense of what police, how police see the world and what police issues are. It doesn't change the underlying issues, but it gives you a broader understanding. Just interesting note, the first time I addressed the assembled masses of the Oakland Police Department, I started off by saying, you know, I grew up in Berkeley. We hated the Oakland Police Department. And then I went on to say that, you know, I got to have a better understanding. But, you know, I was in constant negotiations with the police union because I was city manager during the Great Recession. And that's where the money is. So that's where you have to negotiate. And for the first 2 years, every single meeting with the police union started off by saying, and I hated the Oakland Police Department. But anyway, I got to have a pretty good understanding of union perspectives, department perspectives. I both hired and fired chiefs. I hired and fired a lot of officers. And have a pretty good sense of all of that. My hopes and expectations is that Berkeley has been a leader in so many other areas that there's a lot of conversation about reimagining and reinventing policing, but a lot of it is pretty simplistic. And I hope that as part of this process, we can have a richer discussion and debate and far more participatory involvement of the community in making decisions that are really going to affect this community going forward. One other kind of thing apropos of Mr. Walker's comments, I was a longtime soccer coach. I've been active in youth things in Berkeley and Oakland, brought a state championship to Oakland and Berkeley for that matter. And I am so old that I installed every speaker in the Oakland Coliseum. And I actually know some of you in both professional and other worlds that have nothing to do with anything that I've talked about. But anyway.
Thank you very much. I think we have about 4 more task force members who have not. How about our task force member, Nayo Polk? Uh-oh, sounds like you might be having internet connection issues.
name is
I say that was a neat trick that even after muting, that continued. That was, okay, there we go. There we go. Maybe let's come back to you, Niall. Mr. Upton, want to go next?
Okay, I've unmuted myself now. I'm Edward Upton. I have lived in Berkeley since 1964. And before I came here, I had a good many interactions with the police in Durham, North Carolina, where I was a graduate student in psychology. And I learned a bit about what the problems can be between the police and people who want to be politically active. Not too long after I got to Berkeley, I was present at a political rally in a big vacant space where University of California's Zellerbach Hall is today, right behind where the student union is. At that time, it was a construction site. And I was listening to political speech when a helicopter came over, and then it came down so low that I wondered if it was going to land on top of us, but it didn't. Instead, it opened a trap door in the bottom and spewed tear gas over about 1,500 people, including me. So that was something of an introduction to problems with policing in Berkeley. Well, that wasn't the Berkeley police that did it. That tear gas came out at the instigation of California's governor, who was then Ronald Reagan, and was carried out under the direction of the Alameda County sheriff, who later became a high official in the Reagan administration. And unpopular as the tear gassing of the crowd was among the crowd, including me, it turned out to be a key factor in getting Governor Reagan elected Senate President of the United States. So it was an introduction to the political potency of the kind of action by police at the direction of the government that was problematical, let's say. And I've long wished I could do something about that, and hope I can in this group. I'm at present a member of the Berkeley Albany Mental Health Commission, which is appropriate for me in a sense because before I became a lawyer, which I have been most of my working career, I was a clinical psychologist and was very much involved in understanding the problems that overlap between the police, the mental health system, and the people who are the subject of both systems, the police and the mental health system. I am very hopeful that this group can be successful in bringing about changes that have been remarkably difficult to bring about throughout the United States and throughout the world. One thing that's very different about our group than as compared to what you might see in other similar groups, if they exist elsewhere in the United States, is the wealth of experience and diversity in its members. I've been listening carefully to what my fellow commissioners have been saying. And I can tell you that it would not be that kind of diversity if we were in almost anywhere else. It's also a pleasure to be on this commission with Dan Lindheim and learn that both of us have personal experience in dealing with the police in terms of the administration of that occupation. In my case, during the about 30 years that I was a lawyer for the University of California as a system, about 10 of those years, I was the lawyer appointed to be the legal advisor to the university's 10 police chiefs. So I had the opportunity to learn something about policing from the, you might call it from the inside, or at least the inside as the administration of the police saw it. And I think there are some lessons I learned from that, which I hope I have an opportunity to share with you, but that will be a long story. So it's not for tonight. Well, I see we've got a very diverse and capable group of commissioners here. And so I'm very optimistic about what we may be able to accomplish.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Niall Polk, are you back with us? Can you, looks like you're no longer frozen. Looks like you're okay. You want to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Good.
Okay. My name is Niall Polk. I go to Berkeley High School. I'm a junior. I'm 16 years old. I don't have as much experience as the rest of you. My first commission is the Youth Commission, which I'm currently on. And a few clubs that I'm a part of is Black City Union and Green Dot, which is to prevent sexual harassment, sexual assault. So what brings me here is I would like to be a voice for young minds, mainly African Americans, since I guess that's the only ethnicity that I can really represent, and would like to just represent my community as a whole. What I would like to get out of it is a better understanding of just how the system really works, and then help create a change within it so that people within every group are represented equally. And I think that's about it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being on this task force with us. It is essential that we hear the youth voice, that we respect and give space to the youth voice. And so we'll also be ensuring that there are folks working with you to make sure you feel heard and are heard. So thank you for being with us.
Sure, no problem.
And Liddell Dangerfield, are you, here we go.
Good evening, everyone. I am just in awe of all of the experience that I've heard about so far, and am looking forward to being on this commission. As the screen says, my name is Liddell Dangerfield. I don't have an agency affiliation necessarily as it relates to this group, but I've been a public defender for almost 25 years, and in the criminal justice system as an attorney for just under 27. I started out my career as a prosecutor, so I'm familiar with both sides of the aisle from that perspective. I was born and raised in the Hunters Point area of San Francisco. For those of you who've been in the Bay Area for a long time, you know of its infamy, as it were, to be totally honest. At least during the generation where I was a resident. My motivation to sit on this commission is both a combination of, I suppose, my belief, my values, and my life experiences. I've had more than one kind of run-in with police, both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. And so their conduct, at least from that perspective in the courtroom, I'm well acquainted with. I'm hoping that there is a dialogue that is sparked here and on other commissions across our nation to heal our republic, because it is wounded and it is in need of all of our care. So you start local, and that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that we can reimagine public safety so that we all feel safe in the spaces where we move and operate. And for far too long, as we are all aware, the police have owned Black bodies in ways that is impermissible by every standard of humane treatment. And I'm hoping to be a force of change and not just one of complaint. I'm hoping that what comes of this commission, again, is a dialogue, a conversation, and some synergy to really preserve what I think is a special place we have here in Berkeley. And as someone said earlier, perhaps it winds up being a model, just as we will model, I'm sure, parts of our approach from other places, that our work becomes to a model and inspiration to others. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Liddell. And I think Rohini Har is the last task force member, I believe, but I'll double check that while you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Rohini Har. I am an ER doctor by training. I practice at Kaiser Hospital in Richmond and Oakland part-time. And I am also a faculty at the University of California in the School of Public Health. I sit in the epidemiology department, but my research focus is primarily around human rights issues and conflict. But related to this commission, my research is, the research I do around this is focused on both extracustodial and custodial use of force and torture. The big project that I've done in the past few years is on the use of force in policing of crowds and in assemblies. So a few years ago, we published a big paper looking at crowd control weapons and their health impacts, tear gas, rubber bullets, things like that. And then most of my advocacy around that focuses on like better regulation and documentation of that. So I come from a very researchy background. I also am a medical advisor at Physicians for Human Rights, where most of my research is on the documentation of torture and crimes of war, things like that. So a lot of my work is international, but but for the crowd control weapons and the, especially the extracustodial work and the policing of assemblies work, it's become very, very US based in the past year for obvious reasons. And so I really want to learn more about the legislative and the policy efforts that like all this research feeds into. Like I write a bunch of papers and reports and things like that. But I think for me, I would learn a lot from understanding how that feeds into actual like policies and guidelines and law. And then I hope that I could bring my international experience and my research and epidemiology skills and as well as my my medical expertise, I guess, to the commission. So I practice in the ER. I deal with police every day, and it's usually very productive and practical experience. So I have kind of both. And I'm also a Berkeley resident. I have 4 kids here, and I'm excited to be part of the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe that is that's every task force member. And the other thing I want to say is it is every task force member. We have 100% participation and attendance. And so just really want to appreciate you all. And it goes without saying, it's obvious, this is an impressive group. So the experience, the talent, the passion, thank you all. This is, it's going to be exciting. And so the team that's going to be working with you all, it's going to introduce ourselves. But David, do you want to introduce the city staff first?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. Thank you. I just want to echo Mr. Muhammad's comments. It is a very impressive group, and I also want to express my gratitude and excitement to be able to convene with you on such an important topic. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, my name is David White. I'm Deputy City Manager, and I am one of 2 secretaries for this commission. And I really hope that throughout this process, we can do everything we can to make sure that you are, all your needs are attended to, that we answer all of your questions to the best of our ability, and that we make this as easy on you as possible so that we can get all of your mental energy and intelligence focused on the work of the task force. So again, really happy to be here. I'm going to turn it over to our other co-secretary, Shamika Cole, and then I'll introduce the other members of the city staff.
Oh, hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good night or good evening. I am the 2 of 2, the co-secretaries. I am happy to be here. I am a little personal about me. I was a longtime Berkeley resident. I am an alum of Berkeley Unified School District. So from Craigmont to Berkeley High, go Yellow Jackets, a little about me. I've been with the city of Berkeley, working for the city of Berkeley for many years and worked on really, really good projects aimed at quality assurance, equity, and community services. And now I'm happy to support this work and serve as your co-secretary of the task force. So as David White mentioned, we are happy to support you, answer any questions, and attend to anything that you might need from us. Feel free to reach out anytime. We're both usually always available.
And I just want to express my gratitude to Shamika. This wouldn't have been possible without her. So very much appreciate all of her hard work and what she does. First person I'll introduce himself is our Assistant City Attorney, Chris Jensen.
Yeah, hi everyone. So really happy to be here. As David said, I'm the Assistant City Attorney. Our office will be staffing these meetings, and we are here to try to give legal guidance to all of you, as well as the 2 commission secretaries. So really happy to be part of this process, and nice to meet you all virtually.
Thank you, Chris. And then the other staff member visit with us tonight is Lieutenant Matt McGee.
Hi, Lieutenant Matt McGee. I've been with the Berkeley Police Department for 14 years now. Started here, patrol, then worked in our youth services as a detective. I worked as the SRO at Berkeley High. I was a sergeant overseeing our youth services, and now a lieutenant in our Community Services Bureau. So thanks for letting me be here and being part of the process. I really look forward to this.
Thank you. Back to you, David.
Thank you, David. All right, so I'm going to quickly introduce ourselves and our team and our process. I'm going to try to go relatively quick, but I do want to give some basic grounding. And so in order to help do that, we're going to just very briefly go through a really brief PowerPoint. And so as David White, Assistant City Manager and Co-Secretary of this process mentioned, there was a process to select a team of people to not only facilitate the task force, but to engage in several pieces, which I'll explain. The lead organization is an organization that I am the executive director of. Again, my name is David Muhammad. I'm the executive director of the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. I was raised in Oakland, and for all of my childhood until I left for college, and have lived most of my life in Oakland, but currently live in Berkeley. Am a neighbor right down the hill from Liddell, and the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, there's some team members on who will briefly introduce themselves, but we work in jurisdictions around the country around criminal justice reform it matters, as well as violence reduction strategies. In the last year, we've also done quite a bit as it relates to police reform and reimagining public safety. I have the awesome responsibility and opportunity to also facilitate Oakland's Reimagine Public Safety Task Force, which we had until 11 o'clock last night. But also we're the consultant team in Fresno, California, as well as currently in Seattle, and then separately work on policing issues in LA County, Indianapolis, Portland, and Washington, DC. Although we're based in Oakland, obviously we do quite a bit of work around the country around, again, criminal justice reform issues, violence reduction strategies, and more recently, more specific police reform and public safety reimagining processes. Very, very happy to do it right here. And so with that, I'm going to quickly go through, this is our team. We are very happy and proud of the team that we've assembled, those who have agreed to participate with us. The Bright Research Group, who you'll hear a little bit about very soon, who is an extensive experience working in public processes and community outreach and consulting government agencies, managing projects. They're going to lead much of our community engagement and community outreach efforts. Also the Yale School, which is a part of the Justice Collaboratory, who is doing some focused work around best practices in policing and public safety initiatives. Berkeley Youth Alternatives, who many of us know well, and Kevin, who's on our team. And they are going to specifically help us with outreach to young people and to do some particular forums around focused on Black youth, but also all youth of Berkeley. Pastor Michael McBride, who is on the team, is going to mostly play kind of a consultant role in terms of helping us also connect with communities in Berkeley and help giving some general guidance and advice to the process. But as we all know about Pastor McBride, is very busy. Pastor Michael Smith, who is teaching tonight and sends along his apologies for not being able to be here, is going to help us with the community outreach, particularly in areas of South Berkeley and in the faith community, but also engage. Pastor Smith used to work for the city of Berkeley and has been involved in many of these processes for many years, so help us overall in the process. The Rennie Public Law Group, who is here, and Jamal Anderson, who's here with the Rennie Public Law Group, is going to help us look at policies, do some assessment and their impact, as well as a liaison with the city attorney's office. And so we are incredibly happy to have assembled this team. This is the team that will help you, that's here to support you, provide resources as we go along this process. So very quickly, we have this significant expertise and experience that we'll talk about, and we can share more information. We have, I think I mentioned all of this, we've a lot of experience in public safety, the development of violence reduction strategies, facilitating processes, developing recommendations, a lot of work on research. We have done a series of assessing the costs of gun violence in about 20 cities around the country. We also help to manage a national Offices of Violence Prevention network throughout the country. And so through all of this experience, we're thrilled again to work right here where we live. And I want to ask Holly Joshi, who I've worked with in several capacities. I'm happy when I'm able to work with Holly because I'm not the only person that worn a million different hats in Oakland and the Bay Area, but I want to turn it over to Holly to talk a little bit about their approach to community engagement.
Yeah, thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited about this project. I'm also from Oakland and have spent most of my life in the Bay Area. So whenever we're working near home, it's really exciting. And you all are very impressive in this room. So looking forward to this project. Bright Research Group, we are a women of color owned and operated research, evaluation, design, and capacity building firm in Oakland. We use research as a tool to move an equity agenda. And for this project, we're going to be focused on the community engagement, community data gathering side of this. And we are going to use a qualitative and quantitative methodology, surveys, interviews, focus groups, all of those things. We really like a creative approach to that process to reach and engage the diverse communities and most marginalized community members that often are not engaged. We use plain language in our research, and we usually work with community-based organizations and folks like Pastor McBride and Pastor Smith, and all of you who have expertise in terms of the Berkeley community. We will really be leaning into you in terms of our outreach strategy, but we really use research techniques that are accessible to average folks. And we really try to be very non-academic in our approach to research. Yeah, I mean, you can see all of this. I'm not going to read the slide to you. I know we're trying to move quickly, but we will be available for any questions that you have. We'll drop into a few other meetings. And like I said, be leaning into you all's expertise in terms of our engagement strategy. So thank you. And it's nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Holly. Just want to make clear what our kind of specific deliverables are for this process, which is part of the process, obviously, is this task force. But we are working in partnership with the city auditor to do an assessment and analysis of 911 calls as well as other calls for service. We've done this in a few other cities, and we're doing an analysis of calls for service as well as looking at those calls for service and making some recommendations on where alternative responses could be appropriate. We are obviously facilitating this task force. We are developing and producing a best practices and emerging models of community safety and policing report that we will bring to this body. And all of our products, if you will, all of the reports and all of the report outs of the community engagement will all be reported back through this task force. We are working on an alternative responses report, which is looking at existing responsibilities and duties, primarily of the police department, but also of other city agencies, and looking at where there can be alternative responses. And I'll talk about, where that connects with other efforts happening. And then there's going to be a tremendous amount of community engagement, a couple of surveys citywide, but also some towards specific communities, a number of listening sessions and feedback sessions and town halls that will include one in every council district of the city, as well as a number looking at youth of color, homeless, formerly incarcerated, as well as, again, neighborhoods throughout the city. So really, and I think it was Hector who mentioned really wanting to make sure the community is entirely a part of this process. And then that will all culminate in a final report, which will have a series of recommendations and an implementation plan. And all of that will be created through the process of bringing drafts to you, getting your feedback, your questions, your admonishments, and then refining that to finally submit to the mayor and to the city council. And again, our work with you will be, as folks said, to really and truly reimagine the public safety system in the city. This is something that a number of you have already brought up, that I just wanted to make sure folks were aware of, that there are a number of concurrent initiatives going on right now in the city. And it's going to be very important that we're aware of all of them, and that there is coordination. And so obviously there is the work that we're doing as a team to produce all of those reports and recommendations and community outreach that I mentioned. There is this task force. There are these other efforts of the specialized care units, some of which, so there's task force members who are part of that. There's the BDOT, the BERCDOT process, part of which is looking at alternative ways and to do even transportation enforcement. There's the Mayor's Working Group on Fair and Impartial Policing. There is the Police Review Commission transition to the Police Accountability Board, which includes the hiring of a full-time director. And there's some connection even to the Disaster and Fire Safety Commission, or more directly Measure FF, particularly as it relates to the call center and dispatch. And so there is, and I'm sure you all may be able to add some to this list. And so I think the importance of this is to understand that there are concurrent initiatives happening, and that we're knowledgeable of those efforts, and that there's as much coordination as possible. So the last thing I want to do pretty quickly is share with you this timeline. And now this is draft and is not only subject to change, but likely to change. And so I just want to really emphasize this is a draft. Less important are the dates. More important as you see the flow of how we have thought through how some of this will go. So we are already in the task force meeting, right? And so what we hope to do is we're going to launch a website. Sorry, first of all, we're here at the task force meeting where we will vote on at-large members to add. We are in the process of gathering information and research on the different reports that I listed. And we are also going to launch our community engagement work in the next few weeks, or in the next week or so. There are going to be various forums and listening sessions that happen between March and May. There will be another full task force meeting. The idea is monthly meetings of the task force with hopefully some good work in between meetings. What we need to talk about toward the end of this meeting is scheduling. What is on this timeline is the third Thursday of every month. But again, as we already heard tonight, there's one task force member that it sounds like that doesn't work for. And so although I don't imagine it will be perfect for every task force member, we want to try to make it at a time where all task force members can make it. And again, this will be provided to the task force and to the public whenever we finalize this timeline. But as time goes by, we will deliver and present to this body the various reports that our agreement with the city call for, and they will all be drafts for this body to weigh in on. And there will also be drafts for obviously the community to weigh in on, to have this collective process of developing a plan that truly reimagines public safety in the city of Berkeley. And so this goes, I won't again read this goes until the month of July, where we hope that at the beginning of July to have a final report. Now, I have got to say, for a subject so huge as reimagining public safety, this is a tight timeline. And so this is ambitious. There might be times when folks might want to think about an extension, but this is what we're trying to deliver, because we have two realities that are somewhat in conflict. We have the urgency to make deep transformation, right? That I think we heard from folks tonight. And we have the reality that long-lasting, effective transformation requires a lot of planning, a lot of study. And so we have these kind of conflicting realities. And then again, on this timetable, we would have a series of meetings with the Public Safety Committee, the Budget and Finance Committee, and the full City Council, as well as prior to this, 2 public citywide meetings to present the report. So that is the introduction that I want to give. I want to ask the team to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Holly, who you heard from briefly, but if you just any other introductory points, then we can go to Jamal and then to the NICJR team.
Yeah, I'll say a quick couple of words about my background. I know a couple people on here too. Hi, Mr. Lindheim. So all of the things that Mr. Lindheim was describing, his work in Oakland, I was actually a part of the executive team at the Oakland Police Department during those times, and stayed on at the Oak PD until 2015 as a part of the executive team, trying to implement reform efforts and working directly with the federal court and the federal monitoring team, the city administrators, the mayor. And we were successful in some ways, and a lot of things we were not able to do. And so as you all know, and a lot of folks who have a history and passion working on police reform efforts, there are limitations to those. So I'm coming with that background. And then once I left, I went back to school to a doctorate program, got very interested in research to move systems change, ran a community-based organization, MISSY, if anyone's heard of it. I was the executive director at that organization, which was a community, based responses for criminalized young women and girls who'd been trafficked, but most of them had also been criminalized by the system in response to their trafficking. So I'm coming with that lens. I'm coming with the police lens to this project, and also, of course, bringing in the research. I'll just briefly say that at Bright Research Group, we have mainly two portfolios of work, and one side is on health equity. That's not the work I work on. And then the other one is public systems and carceral system reforms. So we have other Bay Area clients that we are working with on similar projects. We did work with Berkeley, the city of Berkeley, a couple of years ago on a health equity study. We worked with the public health department. I wasn't on that project, but a few of my colleagues were, and that was mainly focused on community engagement and gathering data from Black and Latino youth and residents experiencing homelessness. So I do have some folks on my team that are a bit, familiar with the landscape in Berkeley, and I will be leaning into you all and also into my colleagues who've worked in the city with residents in the past. So again, I'm excited to be doing this with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamal, you want to take it?
Sure, thank you. First of all, I'm really honored to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to work on this deeply transformative, what will hopefully be a transformative and radical project that produces real results, not only for the residents in Berkeley, but could potentially be a model for communities all across the country. My name is Jamal Anderson. I'm a senior associate at the Rennie Public Law Group. Along with myself, I will be joining David's team with Julian Gross, who is my colleague, who's a partner at the Rennie Public Law Group. As David mentioned, we will primarily be providing expertise relative to policy issues informed by our experience, Julian, as an expert in community benefits and public infrastructure, and my experience as a former prosecutor like Liddell, but also as a former congressional staffer and an aide to the former mayor of Washington, D.C. Actually, David and I worked for the same mayor of Washington, D.C. Many years ago, also went to the same university, Howard University in Washington, D.C. But very excited to be here and look forward to working with all of you.
Same university as our great vice president who lived in Berkeley. And I'm sorry, Margaret, I saw that your hand was up and I went to go to it and then I blanked. My apologies.
Is it okay to ask the question?
Yes, ma'am.
I took a look at your contract in the community engagement.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you were going to ask a question about, can we just finish the introduction to the team and then go right?
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. So I just want to two things. Pastor Smith, Kevin Williams, and Pastor McBride all were not able to be here this evening. Pastor Smith in particular was going to participate in just the presentation in terms of community outreach, but he has to teach tonight. So speaking of scheduling, but I do want to introduce the other members of the team at NICJR who really do the heavy lifting and who you're going to be hearing from as time goes by. So we'll start with Cheryl.
Thanks, David. Cheryl Bonacci. I've been in criminal justice and restorative justice for about 20 years, been working with David for 8 of those years. I'm grateful to be part of such a depth of experience and wisdom in this room, and looking forward to supporting the work that you're all doing. I'll pass it to Natasha.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm also very impressed with the skills that everybody brings, and I'm incredibly excited to be working with you all. I'm working as a policy analyst with David at NICJR. I'm a social worker by training and have experience working in public defense as a forensic social worker here in Contra Costa County and also in Manhattan, New York City. I've worked also on research, particularly with on policing with Professor Nikki Jones at UC Berkeley. I got my undergraduate degree from there in 2017, and have been working in the reform field for about a year and a half. I'll make it brief and I'll stop there. But again, looking forward to you all. I'm also a resident of Berkeley. I just moved back from New York City. So I live here with my daughter and my husband. So happy to be back in the Bay and in Berkeley in particular. Great, and I'll pass it to Nahali.
Natasha. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. So my name's Nahali, and I recently joined NICJR as a program and policy associate. So my background is mostly in public health policy development and advocacy, work to close the systemic health gap. But I'm really excited to get to work with everyone and produce meaningful, lasting reform. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. Sorry, Margaret.
Yeah, I had a question. I really appreciate hearing all the introductions, and I'm also really grateful for the diversity of the task force. And I saw in your contract, as far as surveys to target specific populations, that it had first Black community, formerly incarcerated homeless youth, and Berkeley Police Department members. And my question is about community engagement, and in particular, meaningful participation. That how are we going to be inclusive of race, ethnicity, gender identity expression, sexual orientation, disability, and age? Now, I did read your response to the RFP dated on October 6th, and it did have a breakdown into 4 advisory subcommittees. Now, I don't know if that was specific to the task force, and one of them was community engagement. But I think right now I see this really beautiful team that's ready to work, but who are the people that are going to be the ones that we try to embrace and having them participate as part of this process?
Thank you.
David, before you answer, I do want to just step in on one critical point for our commission and for our business. We actually don't have this in as an agendized item, so I want to be a little bit careful about getting off agenda too much. And so we have an item later in the agenda to ask for items for future agendas, and we may want to agendize the contract and the scope of work as an item at the next meeting so that we can have a full-throated conversation. I apologize for being the wet blanket, but my role is to make sure we observe our commissioner protocols.
Yeah. Yep, I understand.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, David. So we will 2 things. We will make sure we get answers to the task force on that. And then I think it would be good to agendize maybe a whole breakdown of the community engagement plan at a, not just future, maybe the next task force, especially when we'll have the full members. And so the last thing in terms of introduction that I want to say is introduction to us as this team is that, I want to go out on a limb and make a bold prediction. I predict that during this process, there's on occasion going to be some contentious, passionate, difficult discussion. I'm laughing because obviously that's not a bold prediction. That is very, very likely to happen. And actually, for this important, challenging subject, something would be wrong if we didn't have heated exchanges, passionate idea exchanges. But I just want to encourage us to argue principles and ideas, not personalities. While these issues are certainly personal to us, please try not to take the exchange of ideas as personal. Also want to emphasize what Chima said about be open. Obviously, all of us come to this with our lived experience biases, our perspectives, and that's why you were selected as task force members. And so we encourage that, but we also encourage folks to try on other thoughts and other ideas. And to that end, we are going to develop some draft kind of guiding principles and ask you all to edit, change, add, but for us to adopt, hopefully in the next task force meeting, some basic guiding principles of how these meetings, how we want to engage, how we want to emphasize certain, priorities in terms of whether it be community engagement. And so we will draft some basic ones for the task force to edit and add to, but really want to say that, this is a difficult subject and therefore we're going to have difficult, passionate discussion. In a sense, that's what we're called here to do. And so we shouldn't be surprised or alarmed when that indeed happens. But we hope we can do it in a way that's healthy. Healthy debate is good. A healthy, passionate, difficult exchange of ideas is good. And that's what we hope to have. But to keep it healthy and not delve into the realm of toxic exchanges. So with that, thank you for the introductions. Really, we look so much forward to working with you on this. And now we want to get into the next agenda items. And we have the two agenda items of electing co-chairs, as well as selecting the 3 at-large members. And so I want to begin this discussion, and then before we actually make a decision, we need to go to public comment. But we want the public to have an informed public comment. And so what we want to do today is elect what we're calling a temporary chairperson, because we still have 3 more members to add to this group. And so we want to select a permanent chairperson once we have all of the members of the task force seated. But with that, I want to, obviously this has been agendized and we've talked about it, but now I just want to see if there are people who they are themselves interested in becoming chairperson. If you have somebody that you want to nominate to be chairperson, what we would like to do is have some of that discussion, identify potential candidates, and then obviously before we vote, go to public comment so the public can weigh in on the chairperson as well as the election of the 3 at-large members. And I just want to make sure the public is aware that in the agenda, in the packet for this meeting that is on the city's website, is also the applications of the 17 applications for the 3 at-large members, so that you will be able to see those and weigh in on that. So with that, anybody want to put their name forward or nominate somebody on the task force to be the temporary chair?
Yeah, I'm Edward Opton, and I'd like to nominate Buna Chima for that position. Perhaps all of us on this call are aware of her history in Berkeley and all that she's done here. So unless there are special requests, I won't try to recount it. In fact, there's so much of a history that I'm sure I don't even know half of it. But I have seen her in action at the Berkeley Mental Health Commission and can vouch to her talent in bringing people of diverse views together and keeping things going and keeping her eye on the ball. and keeping other people's eye on the ball.
And I thought I saw you say something, Buna, but your mute was on. Obviously, there's a question of, do you accept that that nomination?
I would not turn Ned down. I have too much respect for him. Yes, I'd be happy to.
All right, thank you. Are there
But
any?
one question,
Yes,
there
ma'am.
will be 2 co-chairs, right?
You know, so good point. I did say co-chairs, and then I looked again at the agenda and saw it says chair. So, but we're not. You're completely within your ability to have co-chairs, and so it is really the will of this body. And so
I will note.
I might be
Well,
wrong.
I just want to make sure we know that this is just the temporary chair, really just to get us through this meeting. And then when we have the full task force, we'll come back to discussion about permanent chair. So I want to make sure we don't get too hung up on what would be a moment of time position.
Yeah, no, good point. Although, you know, incumbents often keep their, so, for this, for instance, the when to cut the public, the sign up for public speak, all that, that we would look for the chair to help us make those decisions, even for this meeting.
Both David, I'm very comfortable with being the chair for tonight and then let the process happen.
Thank you.
And if I end up as the chair, I do. If I don't, I'll still be fully present.
Appreciate that. Any other task force members either have desire themselves or want to nominate anyone else?
Speaking for myself, this is the type of work I'm very passionate about. And in terms of my background, I think I can provide task force with a unique set of valuable insights from different projects in the city. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on the PRC, but I was also on the Mayor's Working Groups on Fair and Impartial Policing. I was also one of the original press release proponents of VRCDOT. And in terms of this larger work, and in the structure of getting things done, I'm quite familiar with how to first lead meetings, run meetings, and really get to the important work. So I'd offer my name. I know obviously today's temporary, but just I put it out there.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any other people who want to express their desire and or nominate someone else? See none, hearing none.
David, so I entered in the chat that I would second, as it were, Nathan's nomination. He seems to have a requisite experience for the task.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, all right. So
And I agree. I think Nathan is also an excellent candidate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so let's do this. We have 2 nominations. Let's move, and then so on the public comment, one of the to the request, obviously, that can speak to all of the issues we're addressing here, but 2 of the particular pieces of input that we would love public feedback on is the thought of a chair. And again, it's temporary for today, and we'll select a permanent chair or co-chairs when the 3 at-large members are selected and seated. And that's the other point of feedback that we would really like public comment on, is any feedback on the 3 seats. And there may be applicants who are a part of the public, and if we may want to hear from them as a part of public comment as well. So with that, I think I'm going to turn over to Shamika to manage us through public comment.
Yeah, at the moment there are no raised hands for public comment. I see some hands coming up now. If anyone Just a reminder for anyone in the viewing or listening public, if you're at a phone and you're not at a computer, *9 is what you need to raise your hand. And we do have 3 hands, and we'll be observing the rule of, and Shamika will be keeping time of 2 minutes for public comment. Let me.
You want to?
Well, I lost, when you pulled that up, I lost the,
Sorry.
oh, here we go. I got it. No, you can go. I'm good. I figured it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have Jenny Wong first.
Yeah, I just brought Jenny in, our illustrious city auditor.
Hi there, good evening, everyone. My name is Jenny Wong. I'm the city auditor for Berkeley, and I just wanted to call in and quickly introduce myself. I'm very excited to see such a breadth of diversity of experience and backgrounds on this commission, so I'm very excited about this process. As David noted, we have been working and coordinating with his group on actually both David's working on a couple of audits. We are planning on finishing our first audit in April and hope to bring forth and present information to you about some of the calls for service data and the breakdown and detailed information so that you can use that to further your conversations within this group. And we are also in the middle of conducting an audit of the budget for the police department. So I just wanted to quickly introduce myself and also just welcome you to reach out to me if you have any questions or want to discuss further or provide further input on either of these audits. I can be reached at my city email at auditor@cityofberkeley.info. And thank you very much for serving on this commission, and look forward to getting to know you all better. Thank you.
Thank you, City Auditor Wong. Next member is Carol Morasevich. I'll wait till you got the timer all set up. Carol, if you unmute, you should be able to speak.
Is this the appropriate time to address my application as an at-large applicant?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I am a long-term, decades-long advocate for the homeless, including 6 terms as chair of the Homeless Commission, advocating for people's rights of the unhoused people to dignity, housing, and equitable responsive services. I've been an attorney with the California Center for the Deaf. I've been an attorney with the Illinois Bipartisan Legislative Committee, investigating the quality of women's health care and mental health facilities and residential facilities, and an advocate and policy analyst for persons with disabilities, physical and mental, in terms of their domestic abuse. But I'm really here because I've been working on improving crisis response in Berkeley for 12 years. And I am so enthusiastic about the idea of being on this task force where finally we have the momentum to make change. I was on the CIT task force in 2009 in Berkeley. Also was a civilian observer to Berkeley's 2010 first CIT training. I've been involved in advocating for improved crisis intervention, improved mobile crisis 24/7, and crisis triage so that we can have non-law enforcement models going out to respond. I've been advocating for this in various capacities for 12 years, 9 years on the Mental Health Commission, 9 years on a state mental health board. And this is finally the time, and I'm so excited about that finally we might be able to get the 24/7 mobile crisis, rather not mobile crisis, but crisis response that's needed, and that we can get the community-based models now. I am engaged in continuing to be educated on various models as they develop throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I'm going to skip over City Auditor Wong. I'm assuming you already spoke, but if you still have your hand up after the next member of the public speaks, I'll go back to you. I'll now turn to Liza Lutzker. Liza, you should be able to speak.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I'm Liza Lutzker. I am also an applicant for the at-large position on the task force. I am a researcher and analyst at the UC Berkeley School of Public Health. I have had about 15 years of experience working both at the School of Public Health and at the California Department of Public Health, working primarily on issues looking at health disparities in environmental justice communities, looking at worker safety and health. And I come to you as someone who has very little lived experience in dealing with the police. I'm privileged to say that, although I did have some run-ins as a youth, and definitely came out of that with the idea that I was, as a white woman, treated very differently from some of my peers. But I really come to you as an advocate for someone who would like to support those on the task force who have questions that can be answered with data. That is my expertise and my experience using data to help communities achieve the results that they want. I've been involved for the last several years, diving very deeply into the police stop data. I'm a founding member of the BERC Coalition and have been really looking at transportation justice and traffic violence in the city of Berkeley, looking at the disparities that exist and really pushing for a really visionary and truly revolutionary way of reimagining the public space on our streets. And I'd be honored to serve along with all of you all. You're an amazing group of advocates. And I look forward to watching this process move on. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no more raised hands. So, one more raised hand come in, Mr. George Lippman. George, you should be able to speak.
There we go.
You're muted, George. Perfect.
Okay, yes. This is George Lippman. I am also aspiring to sit with all of you and figure out how we're going to transform public safety in Berkeley. I am former member and chair of the Police Review Commission. I've been involved with all the major activities in police reform over the last 10 years in Berkeley. I've been working on I was initially one of the initial people that studied the data, the quantitative data, as well as qualitative experiences around racial disparities. In working in the PRC, we published a document that explained both the quantitative and qualitative explanations for the racial disparities, and also developed the initial recommendation set that is now being adopted and considered for adoption by the City Council on Tuesday, and have been deeply involved with the transition to the police accountability structure over the last several years. Also, I sit as the vice chair of the Peace and Justice Commission, and I want to bring that background to this body. That is a group that focuses on a human rights lens and is the most prominent body in the city that deals with social justice and peace, locally and internationally. So I think that we need to understand what several people have been talking about, the healthcare disparities, educational disparities. These are all of a piece and cannot really be addressed without looking at them together. And I would like that lens to be considered. And I was just choking up when I was hearing about the people having to go to Oakland to play ball. That is that is, you know, that is more than just a matter of how are the police treating people. It's a deep systemic.
Thank you, Mr.
George,
Littman.
thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk later.
Nice to hear from you. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak? Liza, I see your hand is still up. If you, I can let you, well, you did speak. Anyone else want to speak? Any other members of the public? Going once? Great, thank you. We'll turn it back over to you, David.
Thank you very much. All right, appreciate the members of the public and those applicants as well who spoke for the at-large seats. But going back to the issue of a chair, which again will be a temporary chair for this meeting, and then we will confirm permanent chair and or co-chairs at the next task force meeting when we are joined by the 3 at-large members. So we have Bona Chima as well as Nathan for, although, oh, here we go, Nathan myself as nominees to be chair. So I would love to entertain a motion.
I would like to let Nathan do this because he's brilliant. And, you know, as elders, we get so many more opportunities to do this. So I would like to look to the next generation to be in leadership position, sorry. So Nathan, if you want it, it's yours.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Abby. So we have a motion to make Nathan Mizell the temporary chairperson of the task force. It's been proposed and seconded. And so I think I'm going to ask that Shamika call the roll.
So I believe that Shamika got kicked out, so I will call the roll. And I'm going to just do it by the boxes on the screen. So no intention in the order. Commissioner Fine?
Yes.
Commissioner Chima? You're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Ejigu?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindheim?
Yes.
Commissioner Austin?
Yes.
Commissioner Blake? You're on mute, sir. Okay, thumbs up. Commissioner Mizell?
Yes.
Commissioner Harger?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Polk?
Yes.
Commissioner Malvito?
Yes.
Commissioner Dangerfield?
Yes.
And Commissioner Har.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Right.
So,
Thank you, everyone.
Chair Mizell, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, usually the chair has a full idea of the agenda and the breakdown beforehand, but obviously we need to move to our decisions on terms of the at-large task force members. I would suggest for the task force that we, propose some form of a couple rounds of voting, likely so we can narrow down the list Of course, I'm open to other ideas, but given the sheer size of the task force, the sheer number of applicants, I'm not sure we want to go one by one without narrowing it down some, but the floor is open.
And one point I just want to make, left, Task Force Member Ghosh sent in that her three, so I don't know how she was in the meeting and she sent them in. So I don't know, David and or Chris, how we want to take this, but she sent into the chat that Liza Lutzker, Alex Diaz, and George Lippman were her three. So I just want to give that to folks to start the discussion.
So I think Commissioner Malvito.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to raise that we don't have everyone who was on the at-large applicant pool did not speak today. And I just want to make sure that we're still considering them and it's not for a lack of commitment. I think there may have been an issue with communication, or maybe they just didn't know that this was a piece. I just want us to consider that tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Chima.
You know, many of us here know many of the people who are on this list. I really think it would be a fairer process to have, I don't know how you call them, silent votes or something, than each one of us having to say yes or no to different candidates. Now everyone wants to be on this. This is important, critical work, but I think silent voting, I don't even know what that process is called, would be a better way to go.
Yes,
we could all
Mr.
send
White.
our names.
Yes,
Well, I do
Mr.
have
White.
our.
So I just want to ask you in terms of.
Go ahead, Chair Mazel. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in terms of a closed session, yeah, I'd probably ask the same question if we could even do that.
Yeah, you know, my initial gut reaction is you can't do any sort of secret balloting. We do have our Assistant City Attorney, Jensen, on this as well. I don't know if you have any creative thoughts about how we could address that request, but I'm not familiar with anything off the top of my mind. You're on mute, Chris.
Thank you, David. So there's generally a requirement that these votes are taken in public, and so any type of secret ballot, I think, would be problematic. There certainly might be other creative options for voting, but it definitely would have to be something that's public and disclosed.
Commissioner Harger.
So do we have an established voting procedure, or is that what we're trying to figure out right now?
I believe that's what we're trying to figure out.
I guess my proposal then would be for each of us to just vote for the three that we are most passionate about and then see what happens and do kind of like a multi-stage process.
Agreed.
We could set up a spreadsheet and kind of manage this live for you all.
Yes, I really appreciate that, Mr. White. I agree with that idea. You just need a spreadsheet and then probably a little bit of math in terms of where we would have the cutoffs. Commissioner Fine?
I just wanted to mention, I had gone through each of the applications and read them. And, the question that was brought up at the beginning, what are things that we are looking for in adding 3 at large? There were some subjects, like we had one candidate who was very heavy expertise over like 15 or more years in domestic violence. And I was kind of wondering, are we having a discussion at all before the voting about some of these areas that may benefit us in, bringing on more diversity to the task force? I know we're getting short on time too, but I just wanted to mention it.
I think that's a great point, Commissioner. At least in my case, I'm used to 4 or 5 hour PRC meetings, so no worries there. But yeah, would you propose? I believe that Mr. Muhammad had sent over a PDF sheet of just in terms of the different identities of the applicants, and then have a conversation from there.
Yeah, that wasn't on hers, but she is very, very educated in that area, which could be potentially, I don't even want to say the person's name because I don't want to bias something. So I need a little guidance here too.
What's the specific question?
I took a look at the chart that was made and sort of the little brief abbreviations of people and what their specialties are. And I noticed on it, there was one person whose resume I read that had considerable amount of domestic violence and experience, and it wasn't on the chart. And so I was raising the issue of whether we were going to have any kind of discussion about expertise or lived experience that can be brought to the task force from some of those candidates that might make us even broader in our expertise.
Yeah, so Deputy City Manager White, would it be possible for you to share your screen just so we and the public have the benefit of seeing different organizational affiliations? And Commissioner Fine, I think it would be appropriate for you to let us know. So if this person has this experience that wasn't listed.
Yeah, her name is Frances Ho. She's with the Judicial Council, but she's done a lot of work in the field around domestic violence. I want to think 10 to 15 years, but I would have to double check.
Thank you.
Let me just confirm real quick. David Muhammad, is that something you have that you can share? I'm afraid I don't have that available.
Yes. And just as I'm doing it, as Commissioner Fine said, there are intention to be very brief. So for instance, in this case, it just says DV attorney. So it references, but obviously the applications have the details. And I have so many windows up that I can't find the one to share. But give me a second.
Just check, Commissioner Chima, do you just have your hand raised or do you have a comment?
No, I don't have my hand raised. Not that I know of.
It's down now. Thank you. The only initial comment I would add is I'm also encouraged by the current diversity on this task force. While many of you I do have familiarity with, probably half of you I've never met before today. And it's clear that we do have a diverse commission, but I'm sure with any task force, there will be holes. And I would open it up to the floor to have a discussion if there are any specific areas that you think could be addressed by one of these at-large applicants that we may not have addressed at least fully with our current composition. Commissioner Harder?
Yes, I think that Alex Diaz has demonstrated that they have experiences with the policing system. And I think it's really important that we have impacted communities and impacted individuals represented in this body. And they specifically like highlighted that. And I think that's really important. Additionally, Miyakota Taylor, I may be mispronouncing that, has a good understanding or demonstrated an understanding of like restorative justice and healing. And I think it's important for us to have people who are also victimized by, quote, crime. Obviously, criminality is constructed, but those who are victimized by violence and experience harm, I think it's important to have both sides of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I fully agree. You know, I believe, you know, in his application, he said it best that, you know, these are often the folks who are most affected by the policy work that is done in the PRC or the various other city commissions and boards, but they're very, very unoften that they are actually represented on those commissions and boards. Commissioner Malvito?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to highlight that from what I'm seeing on even just our current panel, I think I might be the only Latino member. Please, if I'm mistaken, please someone let me know. And I think for that matter, I highlighted in the chat that there are only 2 Latino applicants for this application pool, and 3 Black folks. And I guess I just want to make sure that we're seeing that there's also 11 white applicants as well out of the total pool. And I think this is kind of indicative of who has access and maybe who knows about these meetings and about this process in and of itself. So with all that being said, I think it's really important that, you know, as we move on and, you know, discuss this, we are taking an equity focus. With bearing that in mind, I do want to, you know, lift up Alex Diaz and Roseanne Davila as 2 of the self-identified Hispanic, which is not an appropriate term, Latino or Latinx, as folks that, you know, we should be considering because we need more representation. I can't be the only one on this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I certainly agree. Any other commissioners have comments in terms of composition based on organizational, race, ethnicity, gender? Commissioner Harger, do you have your hand up again?
Yes, sorry, I didn't get all my thoughts into one comment. But additionally, I think it's important for us to have representation of queer people and genderqueer people, because we know that policing impacts queer people in ways that does not impact non-queer people. And queer identity and policing have had dangerous intersections since the inception of policing. And so I think that's important to consider. And again, Miyakota Taylor is non-binary and is vocal about that. And I think that's important to highlight.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners on this point? Oh, Commissioner Walker, are you waving your hand? Oh, guess not. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking at Lo Grayson. I've been doing a lot of work with him in the community. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Oh yeah. I've been doing a lot of work with Lo. We grew up in Berkeley together, so we experienced a lot of stuff in Berkeley. We're different generations, but I would say he'd be a good candidate. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Abby, I'm sorry if you could remind me your last name pronunciation.
Ijigu. Thank you. I know it was already pointed out that Frances Ho can bring some experience as far as her work in domestic violence, for a decade and a half. We do have representation here already from the Black community, from South Asian population. We are lacking Latinx representation, and I'm making an assumption here by the name, by Francis Ho's name, but we do not have representation from the East Asian community. I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments along this line? Oh, Commissioner Har.
I just want to say, I think like looking at people's race, identity, ethnicity, and gender are important, but having read their applications, I think their viewpoints are also really important, and we shouldn't just vote based on identity.
Certainly, yeah, I agree with you there, Commissioner. I think it's certainly a holistic approach, combination of applications, and these very important factors in terms of representation as well. Any other commissioners? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Deputy City Manager White, are we at least a spreadsheet ready to go? I would probably propose, the vote's gonna be public, but a system where first choice is probably like 3 points, second choice 2 points, third choice 1 point, and then we need to just decide on a cutoff. Is there any disagreement or different thoughts on that?
I am ready to go to accept names from each commissioner. I've got them all set up here, so I can do 3, 2, 1, or we could do 1, 2, 3 and lows to highs, but we can just go with what you suggested, and I'm ready to go.
Okay. You have the role, Deputy
No,
Manager White.
I think I may have confused you because I sent you a note. That was me that sent you the note. So what I was going to do when I thought I was going to facilitate this is let me show you all, and folks can determine if this is what they want the process to be or not. Is we have another spreadsheet, which I think, are you seeing this one that has votes? No? Yes? Okay. So what I was, the original idea was to go down to 17 and have you all put your hands up on Zoom and just do a quick count of each person, then tally it at the end. So we can offer that as a option if folks want that.
Yeah, I certainly find it acceptable. My apologies, Mohammed. I did not
No
realize there was a plan in place, but good to hear it. Do any commissioners have any concerns about that, the course of action? Commissioner Harger?
So is it similar in that we each get 3 votes, but now it's not weighted? I'm a little confused. Do we get like infinite votes?
Yeah, no, good point in that. I didn't think about the weighted part.
So yeah, I guess a few more details than Mr. Muhammad. Is this the type where, we all get to vote and then we're going to pick a certain, so we either as a vote, we get unlimited votes and then the commission will have a cutoff, or do we want to have a system where it is just the 3 votes and you're voting for 3 candidates?
Yeah, this idea for this process was that each commissioner would have 3 votes. And so as we call the name, if that's one of your 3, you would raise your hand. Then we would go through all of them and then calculate it at the end. Again, that's what we came into this with the idea of doing. Obviously, the task force can amend as they see fit.
Okay, Commissioner Malvito.
Thank you. I guess I just wanted to raise, the question if this process is feeling a little rushed. If we're not having ample time for discussion, perhaps with the candidates themselves, and like really diving deep into this at-large committee. I know it's a small part, but I think, evaluating the gaps is important even within our commission that we have currently sitting today. I guess I'd just be curious, how we can, dive a little bit deeper and not necessarily just bulldoze over because it's an agenda item.
Yeah, I'll turn over to Deputy City Manager and Mr. Muhammad. Given that we don't have another meeting scheduled yet, and the timeline is obviously very fluid, I guess what other processes would be available to us if we can delay this? I know the commission, we could push it through just procedural power, but in terms of I guess not the practicality, but just in terms of the timeline, in terms of what would change between now and a month, I mean, would there be opportunity for like the interview or opportunity for I guess I don't know if the applicants were fully aware that this would be their one moment to give us comment on this. Was that communicated? I guess that's the important question. Was that communicated to the candidates?
So I can comment. There was no specific communication to any of the applicants. In terms of process, certainly you all can define the process you want to move forward. I think the one thing that we're going to be just sensitive to is making sure that we don't get too far down the path of substantive work until we have that full task force in place. And I do, just so everyone knows, from a process perspective, have an obligation to bring forward the at-large members appointed by you back to our city council that are all subject to their confirmation per the legislation that they adopted.
Yes. And is that like with the TRC where we get an opportunity to recommend, and if we miss the window, then council can I know council probably act about this anyway. Or are they really waiting on us to have these recommendations and then go to them? And I assume they would be amenable to, if it's another 2-week extension. But honestly, I can't speak for council. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Deputy City Manager.
There's no time frame to this in the enabling legislation. So council, there's nothing in there that council would make a decision outside of this body. So it really is up to this body to make a recommendation to council at a time that you are all comfortable with.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Upton?
You're on mute, Commissioner.
Oh, you're muted, sir. Commissioner Upton, you're still muted. We cannot hear you.
Sorry about being muted. Now I'm unmuted, yes? I think that we can get the benefit of much of what all of these candidates could provide as commissioners by notifying them that we are interested in hearing from them on the commission's business, by making our website and communications available to them, and inviting them specifically to write to the commission about things that that they believe that we should know about. It's not the same as being on the commission, but it comes close to it. And I think it would be worthwhile.
Thank you. Commissioner Chima?
Yeah, I'm feeling like I'm in a Berkeley meeting, that it's very clear to me that each one of us has 3 votes and can put forward their 3 people. I read each and every application and am ready to vote. I did the homework, but this process of should we do this, should we do that, should they come back? I don't think we should delay this. I think we should vote tonight.
Certainly heard, Commissioner, and we will
I
come
agree.
to a vote here once we fully flesh out discussion. I think, believe Commissioner Harger, you had your hand up first.
I actually believe that Commissioner Fine had their hand up before me.
I agree with Buna. I read every single application, looked at every single profile of the people who are on it, and I'm ready to vote. And we have a very, very tight calendar for this task force. So that's where I am.
Yeah, Commissioner Harger?
I completely understand why people would just want to push the vote through tonight, and that was my initial understanding of what we would do, and also what I was hoping to get done today. Commissioner Hector made a really good point though, which is Latino people are really underrepresented in this, and additionally, some people were able to make public comment, some people were not. And the fact that that was not well communicated to applicants does kind of put certain people at disadvantages. And we have no idea why they were not able to speak. But of course, there's a natural bias towards supporting whoever last spoke. That's a subconscious thing that we all have. And I think that's worth recognizing because not everybody had the opportunity to speak. And I don't think that they were notified about this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Malvito? Commissioner, you there? Okay.
Sorry, folks. I'm having a little bit of a connection issue. What was the question?
You had your hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just never lowered it. Apologies.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, it is agendized that we vote today. So unless there is a motion to push this item to our next meeting, we will be voting today. So I will entertain any motions for that. And in the absence of that, we will vote today. Commissioner Harger?
I have absolutely no expectation of this passing, but I'd like it on the record that I motion for us to vote at our next meeting.
Is there a second?
I second that.
There's been a motion from Commissioner Harger, a second from Commissioner Malvito to push our vote to our next meeting with consideration of some of the communication issues between knowledge of the public comment section and knowledge that applicants become foreign at this moment. And sorry, I forget, is Mr. Wright, do you have the role, or Mr. Muhammad, do you have the role?
Yes, I can.
You want to go ahead?
Sure. I just want to confirm that that is the way in which you want to make sure I'm putting up. No, put up the wrong. Too many screens open. Bear with me, but just want to make sure.
My apologies. So can you call the roll? I'm assuming it's either Mr. White or.
Yeah, what I just want to confirm is that you want to do it in this way. In that we'll put it up, everybody will have their 3 votes when you get to that person that you want to vote for, and we'll do it in that manner. So I just want to confirm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're not quite there, Mr. Muhammad. I appreciate your point. Right now, we have a motion on the floor to whether we want to postpone the vote.
Exactly.
You're fine. Deputy Manager White, are you calling the roll since you're secretary, or?
I think Shamika.
Oh, my apologies.
I want to make sure we have the motion correct. So the motion is to delay vote on the at-large commissioners till the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Before we take a vote, we need a second to it.
It was seconded.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so
okay. Who seconded it?
Malvito.
Thank you. Shamik, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Sure. Commissioner Opton?
No.
You're on mute, Commissioner Opton.
I'm voting no.
No. Thank you. Commissioner Fine?
No.
Commissioner Chima?
You are muted, Commissioner Chima.
No.
Commissioner Chima? No. Thank you. Commissioner Jigu? You're on mute.
I vote no.
Commissioner Lindheim?
No.
Commissioner Polk? Commissioner Polk?
Oh, sorry. I said no.
No, sorry. Commissioner Harger?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker?
No.
Commissioner Blake? Commissioner Blake, can you unmute? Oh, no, thank you. Commissioner Blake, it's recorded as no. Thank you. Commissioner Malvito?
Yes.
Commissioner Dangerfield?
My vote is no.
Thank you. I think that's all I see.
Hey, this is
Commissioner
Har. I vote
Oh,
no.
Commissioner Har, I'm sorry. My screen is moving. Commissioner Har?
Yeah, no.
Thank you. Okay.
Have we gotten everyone?
We have
And
everyone.
Commissioner Ghosh is absent.
Sorry, Ms. Go, I don't believe I voted.
And Chair, sorry.
Yes.
Chairperson Mazel?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we have everyone, just to confirm.
It looks like the motion on the floor does not pass.
Motion on the floor has not passed. We will proceed to the vote. Mr. Muhammad, let's continue that discussion about finalizing the voting method.
Yes. Sorry about that. So what we can do, if I can get to the screen share, is either go down and have everybody vote. If that's one of their third people, we would have to then, count people's votes, or we can just call the roll and people give the name of their three, and then that ensures that everybody gets their 3 votes. So what I saw.
I would suggest we adopt option 2 and call the roll. Are there any objections to proceeding? Seeing none, that is how we will vote.
And then I'll add that X when somebody votes.
Excuse me, Mr. Muhammad. So I guess last question. Will this be the final vote, and we will simply tally up totals and see who has the most overall votes in the top 3 selections?
That is my understanding how it would proceed, that everybody, all current commissioners would vote their 3. We would tally the votes on the spot, and those 3 applicants would be selected and sent to the city council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. I just know from experience how important it is to know the voting method. Okay, well, Ms. Cole, I believe then, unless there are any outstanding objections, we can proceed to a vote and calling the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Malvito?
Yes, I would like to vote for Alex Diaz.
Thank you.
Are we currently right now?
Yeah, we would do all 3.
We're doing all 3. Okay.
Is for Lisa Lutzker. And my 3rd vote is for Roseanne Davila.
Just to make sure I'm clear, so I don't get this wrong. Are we weighting them, or are they not weighted? No weighted, just equal votes. Thank you. Okay, got it.
Thank you. Okay, next, Commissioner Mizell, or Chairperson Mizell, sorry.
My
votes?
selections will be Alex Diaz, Liza Lutzker, and I'll go, it's hard, Dakota Taylor.
Thank you. Commissioner Opton, your 3 selections.
I vote for George Lippman. I do not know the other candidates well enough to choose among them, so I will leave that to the wisdom of my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Fine.
Dakota Taylor, Francis Ho, and George Lippman.
Thank you. For the record, again, Commissioner Ghosh is absent for this vote.
But can I just ask on that? She did give her votes before she left. So I just wanted to confirm that would we be okay with taking that? I guess that's
Assistant City Attorney Jensen, would you mind weighing in on that? I don't want to get that wrong.
No, I mean, unfortunately, there's no provision in the Brown Act for voting by proxy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chima?
Alex Diaz, Carol Marosevich, and George Lipman.
Thank you. Commissioner Ijigu?
Alex Diaz, Francis Ho, and Liza Lutzker.
Y'all are keeping me on my toes.
Thank you. Commissioner Linheim?
Ho, Diaz, Lippman.
Oh, that.
Commissioner Linheim, can you say that one more time? I got Diaz.
Ho, Diaz, and Lippman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Polk?
Francis Ho, Julia Neharson, and Liza Lutzker.
Say that number 2, please, Commissioner Polk.
Is the second one?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Julia
The second one was Julia Nehar. I think you already got her. And then the last one was Liza Lutzker.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harger?
It's pronounced Harger. And
Harger? I think
Alex Diaz, Alana Arbach, and Miyakota Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. At that time, I missed the second.
Alana Arbach, fourth one down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harger. Commissioner Walker?
I got Alex Diaz, Carol Masanovic, whatever, and Lorenzo Grayson.
Thank you. Commissioner Blake? You are muted, Commissioner Blake.
Apologize, I keep taking it off. Miyakota Taylor, Francis Ho, Carol Marasovic. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. And
Okay,
Milosevic.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Blake. Commissioner Malvito?
You already voted.
Already voted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Dangerfield?
I would cast my votes for Alex Diaz, Francis Ho, and Lorenzo Grayson.
Thank you. Commissioner Har?
Diaz, Ho, and Lutzker.
Okay. That concludes the voting for everyone.
Now, let the record show that Commissioner Ghosh returned for the vote at 8:38 p.m. and she has the right to vote.
Oh.
Okay.
Can I vote? I'd like to vote for Alex Diaz, Liza Lutzker, and George Lipman.
And it haven't even acknowledged that, oh, Vision 2050, one of the major things there is relooking at.
Did you get that?
Capacity to deliver.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna make
Commissioner
that
Ghosh.
myself.
Thank you. Okay, now that concludes everyone, all the votes.
Do you want to compare notes, David? I've got Alex Diaz at 10,
Mhm.
Francis Ho at 7, Liza Lutzker at 6. So those are the top 3. And I can share my screen.
I think I've got it. Yep, is that it?
That's what I got.
All right, we were getting close to, look like it was going to be a tie, but it worked out. So those are, looks like that's it.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for voting. And I think I can speak confidently on the task force on this, that these were all qualified candidates
Yeah.
with all important backgrounds and important work. And, you know, I'd say that any of the applicants were not in this top 3. We'd love to have you involved in this process.
Yes.
I know as we go forth, public engagement is going to be crucial. And I know your contributions will be valued by this task force. And, you know, really look forward to working with all of you.
So the chair, the 2 pieces that we had remaining was scheduling the next task force and then offering up potential agenda items for that meeting. The 2 things to consider is the I can't remember where this was, but the proposal was a monthly task force meeting. And we have, of course, Commissioner Ghost, who is, I think, had to leave. I don't know if she's still with us, but obviously the fact that she had this other commitment was, I know, an issue that she has the other commission.
Yes. Commissioner Ghosh is the chair of the Transportation Commission. And to my knowledge, their meetings are regularly at this time on Thursdays. So,
and I know, I'm sorry.
No, I in terms of the size of the task force, I don't know. Could we set up almost like a when to meet or something to get a better idea? I'm not sure if everyone has their schedules prepared at this exact moment. But I'll open it up to commissioners.
And just if it is what the commissioners want, we can send some sort of either doodle or when to meet type of via email.
That'll be good for me, David.
Any Commissioner Lindheim?
Yeah, I hesitate to ever ask for any additional meetings, but I don't see how we're going to meet any of this timeline if we're only meeting once a month. I mean, this timeline is supposed to be done basically 3 meetings from now.
Yes, I share your concerns, Commissioner. Obviously, given the limited scope of this special meeting, there's not much more we can do today. But it is my assumption that once we have the full commission, and certainly if I am fortunate enough to be elected chair, permanent chair, I think subcommittee work is going to be crucial for us to possibly make that timeline. I can say from my experience, this is very ambitious because even the mayor's transportation policing group, even without COVID, we wouldn't have made that turnaround time. So, yeah, next meeting, I imagine we'll have a robust discussion about subcommittee work and who works best where. So are commissioners in agreement that some form of email send out to align our schedules is probably the best path forward? Yeah, don't see any disagreement. So yes, Mr. Muhammad, if you could send something out like that, that would be great.
Will do, absolutely. And then
yeah, that goes into our next item, future items for the future agendas. Certainly, I would, hope to agendize for a future meeting that robust discussion of subcommittees and what form that will take, and start the conversations of when they're meeting. Commissioner Chima? You're muted, Commissioner. Yeah.
I'm good now. I think it might also be important to start the discussion about community engagement and really get on the same page that we're all sort of thinking the same thing. And some of us might have some ideas that might not have been thought of before. So I think that discussion is really important. Thank you.
I 100% agree. And yeah, any other proposal? Oh, Commissioner Fine.
Yeah, I just want to say with Commissioner Chima, I really want to unpack the community engagement, and that means both the contract and the response to the RFP, and what the task force members as a diverse group have expectations about as well.
Thank you. Any other future agenda items, especially for our next meeting? Commissioner Lindheim?
Since so much of the RFP is based on what the auditor bid off, and I'm just, she said that she'll have something by April on one piece. That's concerning to me. And I'm particularly concerned that what if we don't like what the auditor did? Because so much of the underlying premise is this whole issue of calls for service and whether officers could be doing something else, or you don't need the officers, or any of the other things that come from that. I'm just wondering if we can get any kind of briefing beforehand or en route, or we can pose questions that saying, hey, maybe you should be looking at this. Because if we get sort of a report at the April meeting, we don't like the substance of the report at the April meeting, there's not really a chance to go back and get more unless we do the research ourselves.
Yes, Deputy State Manager White, do you have any comment on that?
So that body of work, based on the way direction was handed down, was really put into the hands of the auditor, and certainly David and his team are hoping to lift off from that. But just to be really upfront, that's not a time frame that I can control. I can certainly ask the city auditor if she would be open to coming to the next meeting and presenting any of her work or where she's at. But I am, as all of you, just quite frankly, are subject to her timing.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Muhammad, can I ask what items you have written down so far?
So we have a report on the community engagement and discussion about the community engagement. I think it's certainly worth a discussion in terms of calls for service. As I think Deputy City Manager David White said, that there is the auditor who's conducting their analysis. We are participating in the process in terms of we're asking questions, we're giving suggestions. We're also going to do some analysis of that data. So we can talk about that again, and we can potentially request the city auditor to join that discussion. So we have those, and then we gave a very brief overview of the deliverables in the introduction. We were intending to give a more detailed description of that, which would include the community engagement, which we can emphasize. That's
if I may interrupt for 1 second, if I may ask our Assistant City Attorney, Chris Jensen, our City Auditor, Jenny Wong, has her hand raised. Are we in a space where I can call on her to speak, or should not?
So Ms. Wong can speak to either address questions that you have or to respond to questions that are germane to the item that's being considered by the committee, which is future agenda items. So I don't think there would be any problem with calling on her.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I will bring you in. Jenny, you're here now.
I'm not Jenny.
Oh, sorry about that. I missed the wrong. I got you, Andrea. Sorry about that.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
Yes. I just wanted to quickly address Commissioner Lindheim's question about my analysis. So we are conducting our analysis based on the item that was put forth by council. We are following our auditing practices and doing a lot of data cleaning and further work on it. And I know I've been in discussions with some of you on some of the analysis we're doing. So thank you for your input so far. In terms of what we'll be producing, I can come to this commission next week and at least brief you on the scope of our work and what we will be producing. And that should give you a flavor as to what we're producing. And as Mr. Mohammed said, we are in discussions with NICJR, with them on additional analysis that they will be conducting as well, that can add to this particular group. So hopefully that helps give you a little bit. And if it's helpful, I'm happy to brief this group next month about what we're producing, if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you, Madam City Auditor. Is there any other discussion for future agenda items, specifically pertaining to our next meeting? So they'll actually the items, any future agenda items.
So Chair Mizell, a couple of things. One is we have been in conversations with our city attorney, and once we have the full task force, knowing that we have some folks who may be new to commissions, to just do a brief presentation on the Brown Act. So we would like to work with our city attorney's office on that. And then I think both Secretary Cole and myself would like to do a brief presentation on sort of the overall omnibus package that was adopted by council, so that this task force can understand all the different efforts that are occurring simultaneously, so that there's a good understanding and roadmap of where we are and where we're headed as an entire organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I think both those are important. Yeah, I think that's important. Anything else from commissioners on this item? Seeing as there are none, are there any other matters we need to? Oh, Commissioner Ijiwu.
Ijigu, apologies for the late raised hand. Given that we are limited on time to create our final report, I do want to put up on the agenda, if not next time, but in the future, hopefully soon, to establish the Department of Transportation.
Yes, Commissioner, your I'm sorry, your future agenda item is to, for the establishment of
Discuss the
discussion?
establishment of the Department of Transportation.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. DCM White, would it be possible to, I guess, just ask either members of staff from Public Works or perhaps commissioners from the Transportation Commission to help fill us in on that in the next meeting? I know that's being considered right now at the Transportation Commission.
I'd be happy to. That is a body of work that is being spearheaded by our Director of Public Works, Liam Garland. So I can see if he would be available to give an update on where that is headed. As Chair Mizell mentioned, he was providing an update this evening to our Transportation Commission. So I can see if he can come and provide that for you.
Thank you. Any other topics, commissioners? Going once, going twice. Okay, so any other matters, Mr. Muhammad or Mr. White?
Nope.
In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Great meeting, Mr. Chair. I'll second that motion.
In that case, I entertain, so I need someone else to actually make the motion. But thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much for everything.
Okay, y'all have a good night.
So it's sorry, technical procedural thing. So Commissioner Chima, would you make the motion to adjourn?
So yes, thank you.
Sure.
So
I'll make the
Commissioner
motion.
Chima is making.
Yeah,
Okay.
to adjourn.
Yeah, second.
First. I second.
Okay, and then we have to
Okay.
call roll real quick. You want me to call roll, Shamika?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I'm doing 50 things, sorry.
No problem. Let me just quickly call roll for everybody.
Thank you.
And we'll get you out of here. Commissioner Fine.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ejigu.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Chima.
Yes.
Commissioner Blake.
Yes.
Commissioner Linheim.
Yes.
Commissioner Dangerfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Ghosh. Absent. Commissioner Har. Absent. Commissioner Malvito. Absent. Commissioner Opton.
Yes.
Commissioner Harger.
Yes.
Commissioner Polk.
Yes.
Commissioner Walker.
Yeah.
And Chair Mizell.
Yes.
Congratulations, everyone. You made it through your first evening. Have a good night.
You didn't call my name.
Great
Bye.
stuff.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Hey, Dave, did he call my name?
Yes.
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Thank you.
You will.
Commissioner Malvito said he voted yes. I'm not sure if that was recorded.
Okay, I didn't hear him. It wasn't. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.